Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video. And today, I think we've got a pretty important video. We're going to be talking about the best balisong. Now, these three are my three favorite balisongs right now. And I'm kind of in an interesting place. So starting off with the Tsunami. This thing, I absolutely love to bits. It is a really, really fantastic flipper. And as you can see, I did switch it back to the trainer blade because I've forgotten what it's like to flip the trainer blade. And honestly, okay, if you can even flip properly, it flips absolutely fantastically. You can see just how it glistens in the light and how my hands are slippery. I did oil one of my balisongs with a very thin oil not so long ago, so I've got a slight film of oil on my fingertips, which is rather frustrating when your balisongs are polished because it means that they don't grip as well as they possibly could. But overall, this thing is absolutely fantastic and I do love it, and you can hear the sound of it is actually quite different to when inside. That's one thing I want to make a video on, is the difference of the acoustics of your area on the sound of your balisong. So I mean, if we take a listen, sounds absolutely fantastic. And I mean, the way it bounces light is just amazing. Following that, I've got the Gaboon here, which, to be fair, the Tsunami is the only one I don't have on steel washers here, because steel washers are absolutely extortionate to get anywhere outside of the States. So if anyone has some steel washers that they would like to send to me for very cheap, I would be very much be interested in buying them off you, because the shipping to get anything here is ridiculous, which is why I'm so glad this came with steel washers, although perhaps they are better fitted on a different balisong. I'm not sure. You know, I'm even considering putting them on my Serif, because the Serif could use new washers, right? Although it's got the steel one, so not really. But I've always had this feeling where my Serif isn't exactly where it could be from brand new. But anyways, the Gaboon here, as the sun disappears, is also an absolutely fantastic balisong, and it's very different to the others, especially how I have it set up with the bushings here. It is a completely different feeling balisong, and honestly, it's got like almost perfect balance. It's pretty close to perfect balance. It combines a lot of fun in its flipping with really interesting weight distribution. That makes it a really, really good contender for my favorite balisongs. But I think the crown still has to go to the tried and true MachineWise Serif. As a builder, is doing something over there. And I mean, this thing, one, sounds incredible out in the open where its sound is truly unfiltered. Is my lens blurry or something? Is that why this is like bouncing so much light? My Serif definitely sounds a little odd. But then again, it goes through waves of how it sounds. Sometimes it sounds very much like the kind of hollowy, metal-y clang, and I do sometimes miss it. And sometimes it sounds much more clacky, as it does now. I think it's something with my carbon honey, because you actually do that. It does sound really, really nice. It has that subtle ring, which I think the carbon honey thick just mutes it a little bit. So I'm considering getting some carbon honey medium, as I found the carbon honey thick really reduces the bounciness of the Serif with no weights in. And so I've actually been using a mixture of different lubes to get that kind of consistency, which isn't super advisable, but it's just what I've been having to do, you know, trying to get my helix aerials down. And also, the Serif, it flips like nothing else. It's one thing that I actually have to, think about flipping. It's a balisong that I feel like it'll always outperform me, which, I mean, that's probably true of any balisong. But as you can see in this current, example here, trying to do a Z choker on the Serif. To be fair, I learned the Z choker on this balisong, so you'd think I should be able to do it on it. But honestly, it's probably the most difficult balisong I have to do a Z choker on. it isn't a balisong that does tricks for you. Now, I imagine if I'd put in the lightweights, it probably will do all of the tricks for me. But just to show you that I'm not entirely incompetent, you know, okay, I've never done a Z choker on that before, but the Tsunami, which is also a balisong I used to try and get the Z choker down. Okay, apparently I'm just rubbish at Z chokers. Yeah, you know what? I'll take that. I'm just rubbish at Z chokers. Yeah, so, you know, ignore everything I've said up until now, because clearly what I've said doesn't match... Oh, you know what, forget it. Yeah, anyway, we'll go back to the Serif. What I've said clearly doesn't match up with what I'm thinking. But the Serif, in the weight configuration I have it, which is what's preferable for me balance-wise, I think it really does hit that perfect spot where the length makes it strangely floaty, right? Which gives it this kind of really interesting ethereal presence. The titanium is slippery yet smooth, yet grippy at the same time. More so than the other balisongs, which are, you know, completely unfinished. The stonewash here is very interesting. And it's something that I'm always tempted to refinish or try and play around with some other experiences because, you know, I'm not made of money at the moment. Almost. Ooh. Almost. But it's just, it's got such an interesting feel. And flipping the Gaboon, after not flipping for a fair while during exams, has actually ruined a bit of how the Serif feels for me. Not in the way that I don't like a Serif anymore, but it just feels much heavier than before. And I'm noticing all sorts of weight. In all balisongs, this isn't exclusive to the Serif, you know, even the Tsunami here feels very much different to what I remember. The Gaboon has really given me an interesting look on balisongs in general. Oh, here comes the sun again. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Please don't copyright strike me, YouTube. But this is something that I'm still getting to grips with in terms of the different weights. And I think I'm becoming a bit more used to the heavier, because these things are normal weight for a balisong, the heavier balisongs again. Whereas one thing that is also strange is as I get used to the heavier balisongs, I should say, because the Orca, for example, still feels heavy, right? The Orca is still heavy. But as I get used to the heavy balisongs, this doesn't feel any lighter. This still feels really, really well balanced. Now, perhaps that's just because how easy it is to manipulate the Gaboon. Ooh. And because it also obviously has that false edge that makes it super, super easy to flip. But the thing is, I have similar, not the same because this is more of like a flipper's edge. I have similar confidence with the Serif, you know. I'm not really afraid to do the tricks that I normally do on trainers and false edges that I do on this guy, as like, for instance, in comparison to something like the Chab or the Alpha Beast or even the Orca, for example, because the Orca is still stupid sharp, like ridiculous levels of sharp. But this guy here, I mean, I just have unparalleled confidence in it. Even as a trainer, honestly, I actually don't like this as a trainer. I think it could look cooler now with the like blackened blade. You know. But one thing I have noticed more and more is the comfort, but also change in flipping that the 3-axis taper towards the pivot has. As you can see, the Serif has this super, super elegant design to it, where it gets really thick, really thin, and just kind of grows out in thickness again towards the tip, before obviously surmounting at a tip. Oh, not quite. Can I even... Okay, I need to learn how to film again, clearly. Okay, yeah, doing reverse chaplains on this guy, because of the lack of end weight in the handles, makes chaplaining really difficult. And that's where I think would be the letdown of my preference, is that it makes chaplaining quite difficult, which chaplains are some of the most impressive looking tricks, but it makes fans just absolutely joyous. I mean, look at this. You know, this thing just fans for days. I've not learnt properly how to backhand or even reverse palm fan. I can sometimes do it. Oh, there you go. It's something like that. But it just fans absolutely beautifully. And of course, especially with choker fans into palm fans also go really, really well. And, you know, I know this thing also Z choke as well. There you go. I could almost pull it off for you guys. But yeah, this thing, honestly, it is a mesmerizing piece of machining and architecture. I really would like to get another one, another Serif O, just to complete the collection. I think I really would like a blurple one, but I'm also now torn because do I really want a blurple one? I've really grown. This color has really, really grown on me. And I don't actually have a purple balisong in my collection currently, and I'm not sure if I would like one in my collection, to be honest. As much as I love the color, and I've been fantasizing about the blurple color, which, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's kind of a color that's, without the sun, it's kind of difficult to show you. It's an in-between, really, of the colors you see in, like, this portion of the handle. You know, somewhere not as blue as this, but a bit more purple than this. Or perhaps it's on the inside. Kind of like the iridescent color you kind of get somewhat in the bottom of the handles, where they look a little more purple from some angles than others, and a bit more blue from the other angles. But yeah, I've been really tempted to re-anno this myself. The only thing stopping me is that this is a 1 of 3 anno, and this is one of the latter production Serif O's that were available last year, at about this time of year actually, that have the birth card as Serif O. Obviously this is back in the day with the paper card, and you know, the boxes that they come in were like brand new, and so I'm very much tempted to try and get another Serif just to see the difference between a new one and this kind of one. Yeah, I don't know, man. This thing's on a different level. It's a monster of a balisong, and definitely still retains my number one position as my favorite balisong. It does everything I want it to. Not necessarily the easiest, but in the way that makes me feel, what's the right word to use? The best as a flipper, I guess. When I nail something on the Serif, I know I really, really do have it down, because it's not necessarily the easiest balisong to flip in the configuration I have. Definitely by adding more end weight into it and making it something like the Tsunami, this is going to flip much easier. I do all the tricks on my Tsunami very, very easily. Also, speaking of which, very exciting news in the next video about this guy, so stay tuned for that. I know a lot of you will be super excited to hear about it. Those of you who are interested in the Tsunami live play, yeah, stay tuned for that in the next video. But I could make my Serif flip a bit more like this, and don't get me wrong, it will still fan well, and it'll perform even better. It'll do rollovers better, it'll do chaplains better, but and it will still actually do really well on fans and whatnot. But it's going to lose a bit of that Serif unique charm, which I've grown to really, really love, and learn that I'm really a rubbish flipper. Yeah, dude, this thing's fantastic. I may unfortunately have to sell it because of current circumstances, which is really not looking ideal. But you know, it is what it is. Maybe check on my Instagram if you want to know more. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed my little ramble about why the Serif is still my favorite balisong, despite other balisongs which have really, really thrown that into heavy consideration. You know, this thing, honestly, it actually gives me a lot of what that Serif does, but in a much more everydayable package. I don't know how sharp Fellowship Blade makes their ballies, but obviously this is completely dull. And I don't know if it would instill as much confidence if this were, you know, a super sharp. Obviously, it wouldn't carry very much momentum. and so the cuts probably wouldn't be ridiculous as long as the knife wasn't, you know, razor shaving sharp. But also, I don't know, could I love this more than I love the Serif? The Serif I worked for, and it is a proper monument for me. But this guy gets really close, to be honest. I really, really like the Gaboon, like a lot more than I was expecting to. I was actually expecting to not like the Gaboon. I was very much worried that it wouldn't be a balisong that I enjoy. And that's one of the few things that kind of was like, do I get a Slifty? Do I get a Gaboon? The Gaboon had an option for having less blade bias, I should say. Less handle bias, sorry. Which the Slifty did not. The Slifty with the standard blade, which I do love the design of the Slifty, and with the weights removed, still is a light handle bias. Which you could argue that the Serif in my current station as it is now is also slightly handle bias, but nah, it's definitely got more weight in the blade than in the handles, and it does this section so well. It has very little pivot weight in comparison to like the blade weight, and I think that it's done this absolutely fantastically. So that's one of my favorite things about the Serif. I think the only thing I would perhaps maybe change is try get some of the titanium hardware just to see how that extra lightweight does, you know, reduce some of the pivot weight, potentially some of the end weight as well, because it does have a fair bit of end weight, but I feel like it could possibly lose some more. I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm really happy with the balance of this thing, and this video is already far too long. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. Leave a like, leave a comment, leave a subscribe. Check out the links in the description, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Also, potential merch incoming for those of you who stayed this long. You know, merch possibly this summer. Just shh. You know, actually don't shh, but like, for those of you who've stayed this long, you know, you guys are real MVPs. Anyways, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.